Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be turning these strop blanks out of kiln dried oak on my pole lathe. This is to show you that not only can I turn seasoned, really hard kiln dried oak on a pole lathe, but I can also turn a square blank on the pole lathe without any problems. This has been done for hundreds and hundreds of years, and our ancestors were very used to using treadle powered lathes and pole lathes to turn all sorts on, and sometimes they would turn large chunks of lignum vitae, for example, to make large mazes, etc. out of. And sometimes this wood was seasoned, or at very least part seasoned. So this is a strop that I make on the pole lathe. Not only can I turn square timber, but I can make a rectangular plank, and I make these more joinery workshop strops as well. Out of a plank of wood, they're about 1 inch by just over 3 inches wide. Obviously, if I'm turning this on the pole lathe, I do actually cut out the shape of the handle before I put it on the lathe and turn. I don't want to be wasting my time just turning out all this wood here. It's far easier just to cut it out, but it's perfectly possible and feasible to turn stuff like this on the pole lathe, so don't limit yourself just to green wood. So I'll just grab a blank and put it on the lathe. Just set it up as you normally would. Ideally I would be wanting to use some sort of strapping instead of this cord here, as if I press down, if I get too vigorous, it can just compress these sharp edges a little bit, but as you'll see later, I will be actually running over the surface of these with a plane, or actually a scraper plane. I don't want to sand them because as they're going to be turning into strops, and one side will be left bare for if people want to use auto sole or something on it to strop their knives. I don't want any grit embedded in the wood whatsoever. Anyway, here we go. I'm just going along, and as I do with green woodwork, I'm just taking the bumps off, so you can see I'm not pushing my chisel in very far at all, and I'm just running it along to take the bumps off. So if we zoom in a little bit, right, once I get down to a cylinder, I can push the chisel in a lot harder and take larger chips of wood off each time. As you can see, I'm using quite a small gouge, and well, this is literally a carving gouge, and I do find carving tools really quite good on the pole lathe, especially sort of the slightly chunkier ones. Right, at this stage I always switch over to the skew chisel. If you're inexperienced and you don't have the technical ability with the skew, which can be quite difficult, you can tidy up with a sharp gouge, and if you go over it gently like this, you should be able to get a pretty reasonable finish to your work. But I'm going to go straight over to the skew chisel because I think that gives a far superior finish. I don't know whether you can see this very well, but I'm not going down with the corner. I'm working on this part of the skew here, and this gives me a far superior finish than if I'm going down with the pointy end, going round just cutting with the pointy end. It's also a little bit safer, as you're less likely to catch the chisel and sort of run back over your work. Give it a go. In some circumstances, working like this is easier and gives you a better finish. Right, I usually swap over to a smaller skew just to finish off, and again right down at these bottom of any concave cuts you always get a little bit of wood that doesn't quite join up, so I'll just spend a little bit of time just fiddling with this, and now I'll just put my trademark 2 rings in the top. And there we go. Just take this right down, and I'll cut that off later. And very often I'll just get a handful of shavings and just whiz over you could use sandpaper, but really there is no point in using sandpaper. You should be able to get an even better finish straight from your tool, and that is just, well, unfortunately, practice and more practice really. Edges here have remained pretty sharp, and I'm just going to take a scraper plane down over it because this surface is quite rough and marked from the thicknesser there. And I want a really flat, smooth surface in order to stick the leathers and the linen down onto. So all my strops are turned on the pole lathe, and you can still see the cutting marks in there, the tool marks in there.